Ohio State's defense right now, per the average analyst's opinion on this, the average graphics that I see on Twitter, the average video I watch on YouTube, they're the favorite to have the number one defense in college football. And why not? Jim Knowles proved last year that he is one of college football's best defensive coordinators and one of the best defensive coordinators in the Big Ten, which is the conference of defense. And he brings back nearly 70% of last year's production on the defensive side of the ball, where Ohio State was second only behind Michigan in offensive points per game allowed, points per play allowed, and yards per game allowed. They only allowed 11.7 points per game on offense, not counting pick sixes or anything like that. They only allowed 0.175 opponent points per play, and they only allowed 268.3 opponent yards per game, and they were third in opponent yards per play, only behind Michigan and Penn State, where they only allowed 4.1 yards gained per play per opponent play. And this is the worst defense we've talked about so far in terms of takeaways per game. Ohio State didn't even average one takeaway per game. And it's not like Kyle McCord or Travion Henderson or Marvin Harrison Jr., Ibuka, Mayan Williams, DeMonte Traynham, Chip Traynham. It's not like they were the safest offense with the ball. They weren't, and they even had some special teams gaffes in that area, which didn't help the offense maximize their possessions, and it didn't help keep the defense off the field. But they bring back so much, and I think last year for Jim Knowles may have been a little bit of an overreaction to the prior season, where the defense was super aggressive, but then you saw the cracks against Penn State where they were able to exploit some weaknesses in the secondary, and even with Ohio State constantly sending blitzes, they were able to keep them honest in the ground game. And then Michigan and Georgia just blew that defense wide open. And statistically, it looked about as bad as the 2021 defense, despite being very much improved. Last year, this defense was very conservative. In fact, I saw Michigan, who didn't then, and I don't know if they necessarily will now, even though Martindale's more blitz happy than Minter is. Last year, Michigan sent more pressure consistently, not just being more effective at getting the sack, which they were, but they sent more guys forward more often than Ohio State did. Ohio State occasionally sent 0 blitzes, or they sent more guys forward, more than the traditional 4. But they were very conservative. And you see that in their play style, and also in the fact that they were second in both yards allowed per game and points allowed per game, but they allowed 268.3 yards per game and barely over 10 points. That's crazy. And they did that without collecting many takeaways. And you also see it in the fourth down conversions allowed per game. Ohio State was near the bottom in fourth down conversions allowed, and it wasn't just because of the Michigan game, but some other games as well, where especially in short yardage, Ohio State struggled on defense. Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau will be the starting defensive ends. Ty Hamilton and Tyleik Williams are projected to be the starting defensive tackles. This is one of the best defensive lines in the nation, much like Michigan's. At linebacker, C.J. Hicks is projected to be a breakout player by many, will be a new starter this year after not seeing much playing time last year, and longtime Buckeye Cody Simon will also start, likely at middle linebacker. Denzel Burke and Davison Igbinosun, potentially Jordan Hancock. Corner is their natural position, though Jordan Hancock will be at nickelback projected this season. Igbinosun and Burke will be the corners. Lathan Ransom will be starting strong safety yet again, and Caleb Downs, incoming transfer from Alabama, will be the starting free safety. Downs is one of the best players in the country, one of the best DBs in the country, like Will Johnson, like Sebastian Castro, like Dalen Everett. And the best players on this defense are either up front on the D-line or at secondary. Ohio State, in my opinion, has the best secondary in the country, and at the very worst, one of the best secondaries. Their position of weakness is at linebacker. And overall for the team, I think it's game control. They allowed 7 first downs per game last year on average, just from opponents running the football. And I remember that drive from Michigan, where Michigan milked nearly 8 minutes off the clock in the fourth quarter, kicked a field goal, and McCord and the offense were rushed to get down the field and score a touchdown. And Michigan, Rod Moore specifically, picks off Kyle McCord. Game over. I remember the drive where Michigan had 2 fourth-down conversions on Ohio State's defense. Penn State, they didn't run that well against Ohio State. And that was only because they chose to pass a ton against the Buckeyes. There were multiple opportunities for Penn State where if they just ran the ball, they would have been in a better position to win and perhaps would have won in Columbus for the first time under James Franklin. And against Notre Dame came back from a 10-0 deficit and nearly won, if not for some of their own ineptitude, whether that's on Gerard Parker or Marcus Freeman, Al Golden, or all three of them combined. Notre Dame came back from that deficit, was running the ball very well, keeping Ohio State's defense honest, and also taking advantage of how conservative they were and driving down the field late in the game to score touchdowns. So that's an area to look at of a weak link or something where Jim Knowles, you'd expect him to improve upon that this season, but it's a lot like every other defense we've talked about on this list. It's just a weak link in comparison to how great every other player, position, / coach on this side of the ball is. The passing defense, when you only allow 5 yards per pass attempt on 30 total attempts and less than 150 passing yards per game, Ohio State was first in passing yards allowed per game, and I believe passing yards per attempt allowed. You have one of the better secondaries in the country. And that's factoring in Ohio State playing Missouri, playing Michigan, playing Notre Dame when Sam Hartman was still hot and before Mitchell Evans was injured. That passing defense was legit. It would have shut down any passing offense in the country, except for maybe Washington's or maybe Oregon's if they were having a very good day. Tyleik Williams and Jack Sawyer, and then Denzel Burke and Caleb Downs, those I think are the 4 best players on this defense. Williams and Sawyer both had 10 tackles for loss. Williams also had 3 sacks and 5 passes defended. Sawyer had 6.5 sacks in a big game against Missouri in the Cotton Bowl. Denzel Burke had 3 tackles for loss, 9 passes defended, and a pick. Free safety Caleb Downs coming in from Alabama. He had 107 total tackles last year, 3.5 tackles for loss, 4 passes defended, and 2 interceptions. So up front on the D line and on the secondary, yeah, this defense is legit. Linebacker, and consequentially, especially since Jim Knowles likes to use wide gap techniques, linebacker is an area that must be good, and I think it will be. Elite may even be necessary if this defense wants to be the best in college football. We've seen Ohio State and how their defense has functioned under Knowles and also the prior regime of Kerry Coombs when they do not have strong gap integrity. They get gashed. They absolutely do, and I think that's part of the reason why Jim Knowles went so conservative last year. And to a certain degree, it paid off. Ohio State was near the top of football in big plays allowed. But ultimately, it did cost them somewhat in being able to manage the clock and control games against bigger opponents who could go toe-to-toe with them on both offense and defense, and also taking advantage of Ohio State's poor special teams. Look out for the Buckeyes. I think all of you are. I don't think anyone is going to overlook this unit. But don't be surprised, even with their tougher schedule, if they're only allowing barely over 10 points per game, and in some cases winning games against Oregon or Penn State or Michigan, and in particular, let's say Iowa or Nebraska, some other elite defenses, they're winning defensive brawls and just dominating with defense, especially if they fix the turnovers and get a little more aggressive. Thank you for watching this cut of Touchdown Talk. Remember to like the video to help this channel get into the algorithm and grow as we approach the 2024 season. And also subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so that you can participate in our giveaway at 20,000 subscribers. Help us to grow, join this awesome community, and also be notified when we release new content here on College Football with Sam. I would like to thank my Patreon members for sponsoring this video and channel. A shout out to Crash2488 and Brasco Rascal for being $25 a month Heisman members. A shout out to $10 a month American members, all American members, Chris Lane, Connor Little OH, and Ismar. And a shout out to $5 all conference members, John Lynn, Roaming Gnome, Matthew Sale, Austin Christmas, and Janisha Cockrell. Have a great day, guys, and we will see you soon. Bye.